All right, episode 3 is in the bag. Well, not yet. We're just doing the preview here, but Elliotte was great. Lots of information. We could just end the preview right there and just go right to the Elliotte thing, but we won't. Will we, Craig? Or will we? Or I think I have this feeling you're itching. You're dying to talk Sabres.
I am.
I know.
It's been a while that we've talked the Sabres. 6 games in. Actually, 5 games in. Sorry. No,
how's the math on that? How's the math on that?
I was thinking to myself, 6 games in. No,
6 game is tonight.
Big game tonight.
They take on Tampa. Oh, granted, you know what day we're recording this, but that's fine.
And the funny thing is when you sit there and you talk about Tampa Bay coming into Buffalo, normally I would be thinking to myself, this is going to be 3 hours of pain. Watching the Buffalo Sabres play the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is obviously one of the top teams in the National Hockey League. But I'm going to tell you, I've been very impressed with how this team has played. And their record is 3-1-1. A tough overtime loss in New Jersey in last game. But this team is playing really well. In the 5 games that I've watched them play, they're playing with energy. It seems like they're enjoying themselves. Jeff Skinner has a smile on his face and he's working hard. And it just seems like, I don't know. I would love to know behind the scenes what's going on in the dressing room, because it seems like these guys want to play for one another and they're having fun.
It'd be easy to rain on their parade. Right now, even at
what do you mean rain on the parade?
But I'm not that person, because I'm positive. I'm a positive guy, and I want the Sabres and I want the Sabres fans to have good hockey to enjoy. But I think we all had realistic expectations for this team.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not
still
going
a lot
to say
of season left too.
That's where I'm going with this. So like I'm thrilled for their start, because for the young players, they need the morale. They need to feel some of that love. They need to, whether the place or the building is packed nonstop every night, that's irrelevant. But they need to feel the love from, the media and the league and everyone, because they're, getting off to a hot start. I think that's important for them to get a sense of what that feels like. And they've shocked a lot of people. I think Boston was a real eye-opener. I think Boston
they still played very well in that game.
Right. And that's my point. That's my point, is that they still played very well, but that's the difference between a team that is expected to be at the bottom and a team that is expected to be at the top. You can still play very well against them and you're going to lose. But that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
It is, believe it or not, it is a positive thing, even though the scoreboard might not have indicated as much. But
yeah.
So I guess I'm a little apprehensive right now to, as you would say, order the rings, but I'm very happy for the start. I think Tampa Bay is a huge test.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's a huge test, but I was at a tournament this weekend with my youngest son, and I was having a couple cocktails later on that night with some of the dads in the team, and we were talking some hockey. And
did you plug the podcast? Did you tell them about the podcast? Obviously. Okay.
Obviously, all listening to
That's
it.
Free advertising. That's free advertising.
So I had talked to them about the Sabres and how good they look. Not a pleasing lineup or roster to the naked eye, but the way that they're playing some really good hockey. And we're 3-1 at the time, because we were actually watching the game on TV at the hotel. But they were saying, do we even want to win? Do we want to win? I don't think we should be winning. I think that we should be losing so we can get Shane Wright. And I'm going to tell you this. A couple of years ago, I was on that bandwagon. I was on that bandwagon years ago where, if you lose, then essentially you get
No, you weren't.
better players.
You were not in favor of tanking. You were not.
Yes, I was.
No, you weren't.
1,000%. And you know it. And I'm not afraid to say it that
How'd that work out?
I felt that was the best way for us to draft elite players, and that's going to change and turn this thing around quicker. What I did realize is that we can go the other way and that not happen, and we just lose. And I don't think that these players care about a draft. I don't think that the players on this team care about Shane Wright. I think they want to win. And I believe that my mindset has changed a little bit. It changed actually a lot. I want this team to win. I don't care where we draft. I do not care. I think you need to build an environment where winning is a must. And you have to do things together, and there has to be the right culture and environment. And I think that now with Kevin Adams and Don Granato, I think things have changed. It's not just about we're gonna suck so we can pick high in the draft, because that hasn't worked out very well. But we do have some great young players. We do have the Owen Powers and the Rasmus Dahlins and these really solid young players coming up, the Jack Quinn, JJ Peterkas, you name it. There's a lot out there that Sabres are going to be able to deal with for years to come. But we do not want to bring any one of these young players into a losing environment. We want them to be winners. We want them to understand how to win. And that's my thought right now. That's my thought with the Sabres. I look at this team and they're 5 games in, and I have been really pleased just with the work ethic. The work ethic. You know, even if you don't win every game, and you're not going to win every game, it's how you play the game, and the little things that you build throughout a season. I've been really pleased with what I've seen. Now, do I think they're going to be able to sustain this for 82 games? Well, I would say no, but I think they're going to try, and I think they're going to build something within that group. And I think it's a different group. I think it's a different mindset.
Let me add to what you're saying to just maybe, I don't know, how help more form that thought that you're going down. Is that I think it will continue for 82 games? Maybe not the results that they've been getting, but I do believe this team will show the effort for the 82 games. You know, I think, and that's something we haven't seen in many years. And it hasn't always been every player, but when you have multiple players that going that way, that will stand out more, you know, and that is what has stood out more over the years here. And I think what people are recognizing now is not a more talented team. This is not the most talented team they've had in the last 5-6 years by far. There's no risk.
A little bit of an undercover talented team, though.
It's very almost untapped talent, right? Because in the last couple of years, some of the players that have been playing here have taken a large back seat to Eichel and Reinhart ice time.
Yes, and Ristolainen
for defensemen. Yes,
those were minute eaters. They got all of the dessert at the end of everything. You know, they played 5-on-5 the most minutes. They were on all the power plays. They're at the end of periods, end of games. They played a ton. And I just look at, you know, the one interesting thing when I go through the lineup, and if you were to do it last year, while you go through the lineup and say, does this player want to be here? Like, does this player want to be here? And if I were to go through the lineup last year, you could go through a number of players. Then you'd be like, I don't think they want to be here. And nope, I don't think that Sam Reinhart wants to be here. And nope, I don't think that Risto wants to be here. And you just keep going down the line, right? And I look at this team now. They have their older players. Zemgus Girgensson, who is out for an entire year, who has come back this year, and he looks energized. He looks energized. He's playing his Zemgus Girgensson game. You know exactly what you're going to get from him each and every night, and he looks like he's enjoying himself. You got Kyle Poso, who I know for a fact put in probably more work than anyone on this entire team. From the way that he trained, from the way that he changed his diet, he did everything in his power to make sure that he was in the best possible shape coming to this camp, because he wanted to reestablish himself and be ready. And he's looked fantastic. And guess what? Jeff Skinner the other night scored that goal in front of the net, the old backhand top shelf. And I was thinking to myself, that's Jeff Skinner. That's the guy. And he's got a great big smile on his face, and the boys are hugging him. And it's just, it seems loose. Got these young guys, Dylan Cousins, Jacob Bryson, Thompson, Asplund, Rasmus Dahlin, Anders Bjork. Like, they have a lot of young, youthful players that they love wearing this jersey. They love wearing the jersey.
And I think
that's
they're really
important.
enjoying, a vast majority of these players on this team are basically just getting opportunities. Like, these are opportunities, right? Like, it's not like they are, at the start of the year, locked to play 82 games every single night on any given team. I mean, I think that's where a lot of this comes from. I think you're witnessing a team that is, made up of some young future star pieces. And I hate to steal the term from when the Golden Knights were coming to the league, but there are a lot of misfits on this team.
There's some guys, like you said, they're the misfit. They're the toys that, got you got Vinny Hinostroda, who's a really nice hockey player, okay, but hasn't quite been able to grab a spot and really grab onto it. Will Butcher, Mark Pisic's been a bit of a guy that's bounced around from team to team and bounced around in position to position, depending on the team. And, you have some players like that. Jake Kadrula is another one where these guys are trying to establish themselves, not only as a Sabre, but as an NHL player, like a true NHL player that you're going to be playing on the roster each and every night. So and these guys are happy to be here. And then can you imagine playing on a team where you're playing with your dad?
Well, unless your name is like Mark Howe.
Right? Like, imagine playing on a team where you're playing essentially with your dad. And that's like Craig Anderson. Guy's like 40.
I was like James Patrick was like everyone's dad. He was like 39, 40, 41 years old.
When you have players like that in your locker room. So what James Patrick meant to you in particular. And we could talk about you and James Patrick, and you can talk about James Patrick with so many other young players that were suiting up for the Sabres back then. How much James Patrick, you guys always talk about James Patrick. It's incredible how much.
We didn't talk about James Patrick. We talked about Jeep.
There you go. But you get what I'm saying. Like, now you have Craig Anderson, a guy that has played in the league for so long. He's 40 some years old, and he looks great right now. He's playing a great brand of hockey. But think of these young players walking around and looking at this guy that he essentially could be their dad, but the respect that you have for this man. To have Craig Anderson in this locker room is just absolutely incredible, because he's so much knowledge. He's a ball of knowledge walking around all over the place. The way that he's going to train, the way he's going to take care of his body, the way that he's just going to interact with these younger, very somewhat immature players. And then you have this guy that has been there, done that, and he can help these guys.
He also has that unique personal life experience too. Obviously, he's a dad, which is not unique, but I mean, he had to go through some adversity and traumatic times with his wife and dealing with her health and being a player, especially a goalie, and having all those things on your mind. Now, we all have things on our mind going into a game. I mean, who knows what it could be, anything, but to have to deal with that and overcome that stuff and, come back to play and then talk to kids about, the young players and about how to prepare, how to stay mentally tough right? I mean,
Yeah.
part of making it in this league is not about talent. It's not even necessarily about work ethic, although those things are very crucial, but it's mental toughness. I mean, and that's something that I think we've talked about twice now
Very
in a
much.
row, 2 shows in a row. It's mental toughness. And I mean, if you got a guy that's been playing in this league for that many years, there, when someone says longevity about a player, the first thing I think about is mental toughness, because every one of us can overcome the physical grind. I believe that.
Very true.
Like, I really do. But it's the mental side of it that I think is where it got the better of me. I wasn't mentally tough enough to stay 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. I didn't know how, but that's why you bring up guys like James Patrick, guys like Craig Anderson, how valuable they are. Craig, I don't want to go and pump your tires. It's what you were brought in here to for our team, all those years ago. You were brought in here for that exact same.
And we had a lot of great players too. We had some really, like, I mean, high end. I came to this team and you're looking around and you see Thomas Vanek and Pominville and Derek Roy and Connolly, and I mean, it just Drew Stafford, Clark MacArthur. I mean, you just went around our locker room and it was like, holy jumping. This is a really, really good hockey team. But one thing they lacked is maturity. They lacked mental maturity. They were very young. They all grew up together, and it was like they're all brothers. But that's a big part of the game, and I think you kind of need to have some guys, some veterans in there. The guys like Kyle Oposo and the guys, the adversity that Zemgus Girgensson has gone through, and you look at Craig Anderson, guys like this. I mean, I can't tell you how much these guys mean to that locker room. And it's not when things are going well. That's what you need to understand. Leadership and these veteran players, they're truly not at their best, or they're not being used when things are going well, because everybody's having a great time. You're winning hockey games. You're in a good state of mind. You're working hard. You're forging forward. You're trying to find solutions to be even better. But then there's every single season, you have a dip. You have a spot in a month where you're not playing up to standard. You're starting to lose a little bit of confidence, and the team might be not playing the way that the coach wants. And that's when leadership, that's when those veteran players are so needed to be able to stand up and calm things down, take a step back, and let's do things that we can control. And, Craig Anderson, these older players on this team are so important, for the Casey Middlestats and the Dahleens. And
well, let's just say this too. I hear what you're saying, but there's less negativity around the organization. I mean, Sam, Jack, and Risto alone have witnessed a lot of pressure and a lot of losing.
yes,
And I mean, that takes a toll. I can only imagine walking around those guys in the locker room must have been like walking on eggshells, because the world of the Sabres rested on those three on their shoulders.
very much so. Yeah.
And they're not there anymore.
It's like unfair too.
Very unfair. Yes.
I feel for Jack. I feel for Sam Reiner and Rasmus Ristolainen. 8 years of playing where, the
verbal abuse, their fault.
Yes.
And that's going to carry. Players are going to be edgy. I mean, it's going to be hard to be around a guy. I mean, guys are, man.
I don't think
Tim
Sam
Connolly was a miserable prick when not when things weren't going well for him, but just when things weren't going well, because he carried a lot of pressure. He put a lot of pressure on himself to perform.
Yeah.
Since he was a kid, he has been a superstar, and then he signs a huge deal in Buffalo, and I'm going to tell you, like when we were losing and he wasn't playing well, and by, well, maybe to him wasn't contributing on the scoreboard, because if we're losing games by 1 goal, 2 goals, and he hasn't had a point in 4 games, it's not because of effort. Timmy tried hard. It's lack of finish, lack of whatever. And guys are Danny Briere, Thomas Vanek. I mean, I can't imagine the guys that all of them.
Every single one of them had extreme pressure. They were young. They were up and coming. They had pressure. You don't think that Casey Middlestad has pressure right now? You don't think that he feels that right now? There's no Jack anymore to rely on. And
I don't think he does.
Yes, he does.
No way.
Absolutely he does.
No.
Well, why the hell would Jack or Tim Connolly have pressure when he was here? Why would Thomas Vanek have pressure?
Because by that point, Tim Connolly was 7-8 years in the league and making $5 million. Casey Middlestad is 3 years in the league, and
he's the number one guy on the team.
Well, only by default. I mean, if Jack and Sam were still here, if Jack were out, Sam could play number one. Sam's not here. It's only by default that he's number one in the circumstance of the organization. Casey Middlestad wasn't drafted here and said
he's not supposed to have pressure.
Pardon?
You're saying that he doesn't have pressure? You don't think that Middlestad has pressure? Looking at what's on this team right now.
Every player in the league has pressure, but every player in the league has pressure, but I don't think he has pressure or should feel any pressure of the team's success falling on him on a nightly basis, like Jack's. Like Casey has a lot of other guys that can take on the load, what I mean, that are going to have to take on the load.
I used him as an example because he's
bad example because I schooled you.
Right? He's 23 years old, and he's been playing pro hockey for 4 years now, and he was a first round draft pick, 8th overall, and this organization is looking for him to make a major stride. And there's pressure on him. There's a lot of eyes on him.
What's he making? I mean, I'm just curious. Not saying dollars has anything to do with it, but in a way it does.
$2.5 million.
Okay. I mean, he should have pressure by game 60 if he has like 25 points. But I mean, to start right now, he's just getting his feet wet in the NHL as a regular top.
But we did get a sample size of him when Jack was not there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he was basically getting first line center minutes. He was getting first line power play, and Casey Middlestad took a hold of that and embraced it and played the best hockey that we have ever witnessed from Casey Middlestad. And we all think to ourselves in that small sample size of 25 games or so, or whatever he played, 30 games. We look at that sample size and say, we want that back this year. We expect that. And now Casey has put himself on another standard. He says to himself, I can do this. I can play.
Well, we're going to see. It's going to be very interesting because he's never been in this situation in the NHL where his team's, at the top of the standings. He's got nice time and performed when the team is at the bottom of the standings, when there's no pressure about if the puck gets turned over and ends up in the back of your net. So it'll be very interesting. It's a very interesting point. To
think right now the Sabres are 3-1-1. The game that they lost versus Boston, I was very pleased with the game. I thought they played exceptionally well. That's a game that you can walk in the dressing room as a coach after, and you can look at all your players in the eye and say, you know what, on the score sheet tonight, we didn't get it done. But I'm going to tell you right now, we play this way for the next remaining games, we will be very successful. And that's what I think.
I wonder how much money Linus Ullmark had up on the board.
How much did he make? $5 million, I think it was.
Remember what his salary was? 6?
Was it?
He didn't get 6, did he?
It's not $6 million. Could be.
I can't remember. I know we talked about it, but I can't remember. So much has gone on since then of that. Linus Ullmark's contract is like least of my worries. Was it 4 years, 20-something million? Might have been like 5.25, 5.5, something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, I wonder how much he had up there. 10 grand?
No. Oh my goodness.
What?
I'd say
20.
20 what?
1,000?
I would probably say he put up $1,000.
No way. No way. If he only put up $1,000, he should be absolutely scalded in that locker room. Are you kidding me? Rev, what would you say if a goalie or a player comes and signs for $25 million with your team after playing for this squad? You're only going to put up $1,000? $1,000? Rookies put up $1,000 for their first game.
No, they don't.
Drew Stafford put up $1,000 in New York at the Garden for his first game. He assisted on the winner in OT. And I remember this because he thought I was trying to set him up and be like a dick veteran to get yelled at by the guys. He's like, oh, I got to put some money on the board. I go, just throw $100 on the board. Right. He looks at me, this rookie kid, right? And I'm like, here I am getting ready to go out and fight. I don't know who I'm fighting tonight, Colton or whatever, but either way, like, I'm the only fighter on the team, and this rookie looks at me and he's like, What? Are you trying to get me in trouble? I'm not putting $100. What are you, crazy? He says that to me. I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I was trying to be nice to him. I'm like, you don't have to put 1,000 up. Don't put 1,000 up. Like we're a really good team. You're not going to be here tomorrow. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, don't waste your money. You're not going to be here that long. We're in first place in the league. And anyway, so he threw up $1,000, and that's the going rate, I guess, is $1,000 for a rookie. So I mean, Linus Ullmark should definitely be putting up $5,000 at least. Tim Connolly put up $3,000 in Dallas for Rip Simonic's Rip Simonic's 3,000th game as a trainer in the league.
All right.
Feel like that $1,000 bet?
Yeah, I don't think the $1,000 is good anymore. I think I don't know. It's been a long time. I would like to know what these there's so many players in the league that are making extreme amounts of money. I would love to know what these guys are putting on the board.
Do you remember? I think you went up to the board. I remember this. I think you went up to the board, or I don't know. It definitely happened in Buffalo, and it was later in my career because I was at a point where like I could chirp about it or whatever. But someone went up to the board and put 2,000 or 3,000 down or whatever it was on the board, and then put minus 15% escrow, and then did the math, and then put, this is what I'm putting down on the board today. Did all the math on the board. Was it not you? I thought maybe it might have been you. With the team
I would have taken the time to
figure out the escrow
calculator out to do that. No,
I can't remember who it was. Oh my God, guys were sitting there and trying to help the guy do the math, and he kept screwing up the math, and he goes, we'll just do this amount. I thought for sure it was you. I thought it was you just because of the math problems. But anyway, that being said, so that's it. And then Elliotte had everything you want to hear about Jack. If you're not tired of hearing about Jack, but we asked him, we said, is this something that's going to be in your 32 thoughts every week? And he said, absolutely. Everyone's tired of hearing about Jack, but that's the biggest story. And I think, I don't know, he talked about something on Hockey Night in Canada, but inside the podcast,
I just hope that it comes to a resolution.
Yeah, inside the podcast here, he referenced the grievance. Would you say what comes to a resolution? The Jack Eichel?
I just hope it comes to a resolution. I just think that we need to move on from this. And, I hope things work out for Jack, and I hope things work out for the Sabres, and they can just close this chapter and move on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a bold prediction, Riv. Jack Eichel's going to play for the Buffalo Sabres again this year. Jack Eichel will play games because you know what's going to happen? The grievance is going to happen, and he'll end up having a surgery, and he'll end up playing in like March. So, well, we'll see. Enjoy what's inside, ladies and gentlemen. Riv, anything quickly to add before we get out of here and head into Elliotte?
No, okay. Not at all. The only thing is, enjoy this little segment with Elliotte Friedman. He's certainly gives some great insight on what could happen with Jack.
Episode 3 with Elliotte Friedman. Even though we have 5 out there, the pilot, episode 1, the Reuben Brown special, the JR, and now Elliotte Friedman joining us.
I had the under, Andrew, so congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, we were excited last week. We were just spitting stuff out left, right, and center. I
Good.
mean,
That's the way it is. Yep.
we had a lot going on, but I guess we owe you the thank you for actually us being here, right, Craig? We were talking about this before.
Yeah,
If it weren't for you, Elliotte, we never would have left and gone off on and done our own podcast. It was your advice. You said in your last 31, or there was 31 thoughts, now 32. Podcasts are a way of the future. And Craig and I were like, maybe we should just listen to Elliotte and just split and go start our own thing.
Well, I think that if you take a look at my own company, right? Like I work obviously for a media company, and it's very clear that they believe in podcasts more than they believe in radio. So, I think that if a media company believes that, and it's a pretty big one and a pretty powerful one, then, little dumb me should believe the same thing.
All right. So that was our pat on the back thing for you, Elliotte. Now let's get into it.
All right. No more.
You are
BS.
26 minutes late. And if you were 26 minutes late to a team meeting in the National Hockey League, what do you think that fine would be?
Well, I got some stories for you, Craig. First of all, Harry Neal, who I worked with when I first joined Hockey Night in Canada, he used to call me 5 to 7 because I was always 5 to 7 minutes late. And I do have a bad habit with that. I'm better than I used to be, but I do have a bad habit with that. And he told me, he used to tell me I would have you shipped out to the minors so fast you have no idea. And the other one that's interesting about that is that Kelly Rudy, the angriest he ever got at me was at the Olympics in Italy in 2006. I was 15 minutes late to meet people in the lobby for dinner, and he yelled at me in front of everyone in the lobby, like viciously undressed me in front of other people. And later on, he apologized for it. And I said, you don't have anything to apologize for. I was late, and I'm late all the time. And I don't have a single problem with what you did. If I didn't like it, I'd be on time. So I do have a timeliness issue, Craig, but I will say today, in my defense, there is a big breaking story in Toronto this morning, and I was having to deal with it. So I will say in this case, it was not because I wanted to stiff you guys or cause you guys inconvenience. Yeah. This was a legitimate work issue.
Is this a story? Is this a story that is coming out, or is this a story that you're related to, or will it be in 32 Thoughts this week?
Well, basically what it is there's a lot going on, right? Like there's Chicago, what's going on with their team. There's Toronto, what's going on with its team. And there's also a story I work for, Rogers, and Rogers is having a big corporate fight right now, and all the dirty laundry is airing into public. And one of the stories that came out on Monday morning by the Toronto Star was that they're reporting that Rogers interfered with the Raptors' attempts to re-sign their head of basketball, Masai Ujiri, who, as far as I'm concerned, should get $11 billion for leading the Raptors to the NBA title.
No question, right?
But there was an internal fight over it, and when that, one of the questions that I look at is, okay, this happened in basketball, and it's also happened with the Blue Jays. One of the things you start looking at is there a Leaf-related angle that I should be dealing with? And one of the people who I could ask about that called me this morning while I was supposed to be on with you. So you guys got bumped, unfortunately.
You know what? Andrew and I love our time together. We're just sitting there staring at each other. Like, look at Andrew's hair in the morning. He's got his hair back, all slicked back, looking ready to go. Like, look at this. He's wearing.
What's this got to do with anything?
Well, when I finally dialed in, everyone, I want you to know that Craig was lying on his couch pretending he was sleeping, and he might not have been pretending. Like, let's go with that too.
Yeah.
So, I wonder, like, when you talk about Rogers getting involved in that and stuff. I mean, you said you think that stuff that happens with the Leafs. Shouldn't it? Should it not? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, like, how much money are we talking about? Is that just strictly the business side of the game that people should just not be getting involved in?
Well, everybody feels differently about these things, but Masai Ujiri, as far as I'm concerned, he led the Raptors to a title, and he bet on his vision, and he won. And I think in the NBA, it's very hard to win. A, if you don't have a superstar or two, and B, it's a league where, like, you look at Milwaukee won with Giannis the other day, last year, and when you're in Milwaukee and you have a star of that nature, all you ever hear is, oh, he's going to want to leave for New York or LA or something big like that. Like the NBA as a league, or Miami, the NBA as a league, it feels the pull. The stars always feel the pull of the biggest markets, right? And so, like, when Vince Carter was here, and he was the biggest star in the NBA at a time, there was always a belief that, and like in the NHL, Toronto's the big market, but in the NBA, even though it's like a big market, it's not treated like as such. And there's a snobbery down on Toronto, and it's kind of like, oh, Vince Carter, he's not going to want to stay there. Why would he want to stay there? He's going to want to go somewhere to the States and somewhere big. So I think it's a big challenge to win here. But Ujiri bet on it, and he won. And I don't, like, I got to tell you, like, this year he drafted a guy named Scotty Barnes in the first round, and people were like ripping that pick. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm saying, hasn't this guy earned the benefit of the doubt? Like, and like, as far as I'm concerned, they probably can't pay him enough. So
no one thinks that he deserves the benefit of the doubt because there's no Kawhi Leonard anymore.
Yeah, but he still made that deal. People said Kawhi Leonard, he's not going to show up. He's not going to go to Toronto. They got him to Toronto. The guy played great. And then we were like, he's going to leave. And I'm like, I don't care if he leaves. He won the NBA title here. He had 1 year left on his contract. He did everything he was supposed to do. He played hard. He won a championship. If you want to leave somewhere else for $300 million, you've earned it. Like, I don't know. Like, so it's a big story up here, and I think Ujiri's worth every penny he can negotiate.
And where did Kawhi sign in the
Clippers?
Clippers?
Yes. Yeah, Clippers.
Loyalty's rare in sports. I think that's probably what shocks so many people. And that Giannis story that you're talking about, that's very unique.
Yeah.
You say that, though. You say, these players have a very short lifespan in this game. So you have to take advantage of your opportunity when it's given. I understand that, it's becoming more and more rare to see a player stay with one organization throughout his time, but there's a lot of money out there. And these players, I think, for the most part, they're only doing this for a short period of time, so they have to take advantage.
At the end, what I believe, guys, and you guys saw it too, when you're a free agent, you've earned the right to test the market and see what's out there for you. People do it in life. I don't see why people can't do it in sports. But in this particular case, like, what Ujiri's done with the Raptors, he's worth every penny he gets. And I know the fan base feels the same way. So all the dirty laundry is getting out today.
I know we want to talk everything 32 Thoughts and what's going on in 32 Thoughts. And I mean, maybe this is something that's going to be up in there because, we talk about it every year at this time, but you look at some of the teams in the league, Elliotte, and some of the terrible starts that they've had. And I wonder if there's a thought out of the 32 that might discuss some hot seat coaches or even general managers in the league already this early in the season.
Okay. So who are you thinking about?
Well, Montreal, I think
Montreal. Yeah. I mean,
well, Montreal's situation's a little unique, Craig, in the sense that his contract is up at the end of the year. And he's been there a decade. How long did you play in Montreal, Craig?
12 years.
Okay. So just a little bit less than, you were there. I think the biggest thing that we're dealing with here is Bergevin burned out? Like, does he feel that after 10 years of this, it's enough? And I think there is something to that. I do believe that. I think one of the reasons that he's been very understanding of what Jonathan Drouin has gone through and what Carey Price has gone through is that I think he's felt the burnout himself. And, last year in the off season, your old buddy, Chris Drury, was promoted in New York, and he got a great contract. And the number is believed to be in the mid fours. And it's a great deal. And he's also president. But I think what that did was it had some executives in the league looking and saying, wow, that's a great deal. Well, that should raise my bar. And I think Bergevin is one of the people who said that. I don't believe Montreal is willing to go into that salary stratosphere for him. So I think that what Bergevin is saying is if I'm going to stay, like, I feel I should be in that area or around. I don't know if he's asking for the same amount of money, but closer to that number, if I'm going to put up with all this aggravation. And they haven't been able to reach a deal. And I think that, so I think that's kind of where we are. I'm not saying they can't reach a deal. I never believe that anything really gets done until, in most cases, till there's a real deadline. But, I think Bergevin has kind of wondered if it's time to go somewhere else that's a little less.
How desirable would Bergevin be if he was on the open market right now?
I think he'd be, well, you know what? I think he'd be fairly desirable. He won, he got the team in the Stanley Cup last year, although they're off to a rough start this year. I don't think that is entirely a problem of his making. Like you guys have been, like, you look at a team, you don't have Price, you don't have Weber, you don't have Perry, and that was their choice. You don't have Deneau, which was also their choice. You don't have Edmondson for the beginning of the season, who isn't the biggest name, but he's a stabilizing player.
Yep.
He's the Craig Rivet of the current Canadians. I think
Kotkaniemi.
Yeah, but that was also their choice.
Yes, but I mean, these are all players
that
are not in the current lineup. That was a team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year.
Yeah, they've lost their identity. And, the thing that I think is Bergevin's biggest strength is that he comes up on a course of action and he does it. Whether people agree with it or not, he does it. And I think in markets like Montreal, that's not insignificant.
So in Montreal, it's easy to suggest that GM goes first. This isn't going to fall on the coach right away. Are we keeping you up?
Sorry, it's more, like I said, I'm tired. No, I don't think they're even looking to fire anyone, to be perfectly honest.
Really?
No, I don't. Now, I will say this. I'm not convinced the owner liked that this is now public. I don't think he liked Bergevin addressing, like last week, Bergevin said, in a perfect world, I'd be back. Well, I think now we all know what that means. I'm not convinced the owner would like that, but I don't think he's looking like. There have been plenty of times over the last decade that Jeff Molson, like the fans were clamoring for Jeff Molson, the owner, to fire Marc Bergevin, and he never did. He clearly believed in his plan. Also they fired the coach last year, so I don't think that is going to happen again. I think they play this like to be honest, guys. If I was Montreal, you know what I'd be doing right now? I'd be saying, should we go for Shane Wright this year and come back next year?
I thought that's what. Yeah, I mean
that's what I would do.
That seemed like when you're this far in, why are you going to try to claw? Like I know it's only 6 games, but
I agree.
Like go get them. You need them. I mean, you need them. You're already there.
You're telling me you're a team that was in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and now 6 games in, our course of action is to somewhat tank for Shane Wright.
Well, Craig, like look at the situation, right? Sometimes these are extraordinary circumstances. I mean, you don't have your captain, you don't have your number 1 goalie, and you're not going to have your captain all year, and you may never have him again. And your number 1 goalie, we just don't know, right? So sometimes you just say, okay, it's like my grandmother used to have a line, you plan, God laughs. So God's laughing a little bit right now with the Montreal Canadiens. So maybe sometimes you pull an audible and you say, look, like this year, first of all, the drafts in Montreal, they have 2 first-rounders. One of them is tied up with Arizona and the Dvorak trade. Like they know one of those picks is probably could be going to the Coyotes. But you're not trading the first-round pick when you're 0-6 and you have the draft and there's a franchise player at the top of it. It's insane.
Yeah.
So sometimes, Craig, you just got to say, holy cow, I didn't think we'd be in this situation, but here we are. Let's be smart about it.
I'd be so wrong if they got that first pick.
Why?
Because Sabres have sucked for so many years. They haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. I feel right now, for the first time in a very long time, that they have made the proper decisions with the development of some of the younger players. Like
I agree with that.
An Owen Power, who is capable of playing in the National Hockey League, is not. He's going to.
I think that was probably as much Power's choice, but yeah, it's probably better.
But I would say it's probably collective, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think watching him in the World Championships last year, I think he threw an eyebrow raise, and you could clearly see that he could play at a higher level. But the best thing for Owen Power right now is for him to stay at Michigan. And you have Jack Quinn, who's probably capable of playing in the NHL, and JJ Peterka could probably play in the NHL, but they're keeping them in the minors and they're allowing them to marinate. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, the same thing. So they're doing the right things by allowing players to develop in different spots.
So why does that suck why would that suck if Montreal got that?
Because I just think that Montreal or Buffalo has struggled and not made the playoffs in so many years. And now you're going to have a team like Montreal, who went to Stanley Cup playoffs last year, going to go and get Shane Wright.
Well, you know, Craig, there are people who feel that if you're that out of it for that long, maybe you don't deserve that player.
There's that, but I mean, if it's with intent, like
I guess my feeling is the same thing as what we said about the Edmonton Oilers all those years.
Yeah, and people said the same thing.
They were furious, you know.
Yeah. When they won the McDavid, do you think the league liked that?
No.
Remember the look on McDavid's face initially?
But
did the league like it? Did the league like it, Elliotte, or did McDavid not like it? I think for hockey, like for the league, Edmonton needed him. They had the new rink. They were, terrible.
No, I don't. I think initially there was like, you know what? Like, I think remember they were working on changing the lottery odds around that time too, and now one of the things that's happened is, they've changed them for next year because they were tired of the same teams winning all the time. And is there too much incentive not to win games because you could win the lottery? I don't think anybody like that. Nobody wants to see a team in the lottery, 10 years in a row or 10 years out of 11. Nobody wants that. It's not good. Now, the one thing I agree with you, and, I don't like what's going on with Eichel. I don't think that a player legitimately injured in a game should be held up like this. But I do like what your organization is starting to do. I think what I'm seeing in Kevin Adams is I'm seeing a guy who says, I know what I don't know. And I thought Jason Karmanos was a really good hire because the guy's been around for a long time.
Yep.
I don't know Sam Ventura, but I know of him, and people speak very highly of him. The analytics Dominic that was hired last week, people speak really highly of him too. Like, I think you guys are bringing good people in there. I think you're choosing to build around Cousins. I think that he is a hell of a player and he's got the right attitude. I just think that people look at it and say, how many times have we thought we've been going down this road? That's all.
Let's talk about the Sabres more and Jack Eichel. Is there any more there? Because there's been some rumor, Elliotte, about it heating up. I'm sure. Is this going to make your 32 thoughts every week until it is?
I had one guy tweet at me. He says, I love everything about your blog and podcast, except I'm tired of hearing about Eichel. And I kind of laughed and I said, I get it, but it's a story. And, I think we're getting close to a grievance. Like on Saturday night, I said maximum 2 weeks. I was being careful. Like, I don't think it's today or anything like that, and we're taping this on Monday morning, but I think we're getting there. I think the grievance is coming. And I think the argument is going to be that there's plenty of doctors who feel that this is a legitimate path and the CBA was never intended to block people from getting legitimate medical procedures. So I do think this is coming.
So let me ask you, does it go be like, could Jack Eichel sue the Sabres?
Well, I think I don't know if it's suing the Sabres. I think it's more like I don't think it's suing the Sabres. I think it's more like challenging to say that they shouldn't be able to block him from this operation.
How long does that process take to kind, like if a grievance is filed? I have to imagine Jack is going to miss a vast majority of this season.
Yeah, it's hard to see. Like I know, like I think one of the things that's really difficult about this for him is that he hoped to play in the Olympics.
Yeah,
and who wouldn't? Like it's very hard to see that happening.
He must Elliotte. I've never, like Craig, I'm sure you can speak to this more than I can for sure, but Elliotte, I couldn't imagine how trapped and how fuming he must be, knowing that this is in his prime, his first chance at an Olympic Games, and he's not going.
Well, you know, how would you feel? I I only judge other people the way I judge myself, right? So I put myself in his shoes, and I know how I would be.
Well, I can tell you this as a player that has had, many surgeries over the years to fix my body to be able to play at the highest level. I would never be doing a surgery that I didn't felt that I was comfortable with. That if I felt I wanted to do something else, then that's what I'm sticking to, because it goes far beyond just what's going to happen in the next, 5 or 6 or 7 years with Jack Eichel when he's playing in the National Hockey League. You have to look at what is his body going to feel like after the game. And there's a long life to live after we move on from the National Hockey League. And I think that's an important thing to be looking at too.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. Craig, I think all this is true. Like Andrew, I remember talking to you once in one of your later years with the Sabres. And, I remember you told me that when there was one time you were there, and I can't remember what the circumstances were, but you re-signed, and they kind of told you before the season, Andrew, you might not play a ton. And you signed up for it knowing that was going to be the case. And I think if I remember the conversation properly, you told me that, even though you knew what you were signing up for, it was still hard not to play. And that's you signing up for it. Now imagine what Eichel's going through right now, where he can't play and he's in the middle of this battle. I mean, guys, I think this is wrong. I think this is bad for the league.
Trades then.
What's that?
Are there teams out there that have got the medical information on Jack, and they have looked at it, and they've looked at it with their doctors and talked of all of these specialists that have agreed with Jack Eichel's train of thought? Why has there not been a deal done yet?
Well, I think there are teams that agree with it. I think there are teams, like I've been told there was one team that really liked Eichel that isn't in favor of it. I don't know which one it is, but I've been told there was, like, one of the teams that a lot of us have kind of considered as a team that's been consistently mentioned it has said, we're not crazy about this. So I think that's a factor, like who's interested and willing. I think there's about the number we keep hearing is 4 or 5 teams. I just think the Sabres have asked a lot. I do. And what I think is going on right now is, like, I think the Players Association is involved. I think the league is involved. I think everybody is trying to push people along to, can we find a conclusion? And one of the things I think that's happened here is, I've heard that the Sabres were, like, ownership there, the Pagulas, were really happy about the way the Ristolainen trade was received, and like the what you guys got in return. And that deal was done because Adams was willing to be patient. He was very patient with Ristolainen, and he got a deal that Sabres fans really liked, and therefore ownership really liked. And so it convinced them that the path with Eichel was to be similarly patient. So I think they're asking a lot. I've just heard the price is very, very high still. And that's the way the Sabres feel. And that's why we aren't where we don't have a deal yet.
Anaheim. Was it Anaheim?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I was told that there was one team that we were all kind of around them on, and they weren't crazy about.
What's the? We'll start to wind down here. What's the closest a trade has that has been for Jack Eichel? Has there been one that has been really, really close?
I don't know that. I will say this. I think Calgary has engaged pretty deeply at times. Haven't been able to get it done, but I think that Calgary has been engaged pretty deeply. I think Vegas has engaged pretty deeply at times, but haven't been able to get it done. Because I think we're talking about I think Minnesota has talked at times, and now Minnesota has another issue, which is their cap situation after buying out both Parise and Suter, which affects their ability to do it too. It obviously hasn't gotten done. And I think the Rangers, and I don't know if this is recent, I think this was more like a year ago, have been around it, but haven't gotten it done. So, but the fact that the grievance is coming up now says to me, Andrew, that people don't see the trade as likely right now. And that's why the grievance is coming out, because they think that that's the best way to move this along.
So what happens next? Let's say the grievance is in favor of Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel.
Then he can go get the surgery.
And now the Sabres are just basically waiting. He's still obviously Buffalo Sabres, owned, and they have to wait until he's healthy.
The question becomes to me, Craig, is do we get a situation where Jack plays for the Sabres again?
I was just about to ask you, Elliotte, make a prediction. Yes or no, Jack Eichel plays for the Sabres again?
Well, I'll tell you this. If it depends on what happens with the grievance, right? Like, if he wins the grievance, then I think he gets traded.
Okay.
But we'll see. And, someone asked, like, the thing is, grievances aren't necessarily fast. Now, there is a process where they can ask for an expedited grievance, and I think there would be a desire here to do this one as quick as possible. But, arbitrators and lawyers, they don't work incredibly quickly.
Last question, because we don't want to just stay Sabre-centric, although they have the biggest story in hockey right now, which is Jack Eichel, which is why you'll have it in your 32 thoughts every single week. But is there going to be a shakeup over the border in Toronto?
I think I always thought they had this season. The players, the team had this season to sort it out. If it continues this way, I think the clock starts ticking earlier.
Okay, well, something to keep an eye on. Great stuff as always, Elliotte.
Great to chat with you guys.
Yeah.
Looking forward to listening.
You know what? And I'll say this.
Next week, I'll try to be on time.
No, you know what? Listen, the later you are, for the reasons that you're late, are beneficial for us. So it's really not a problem. I mean, you come on telling us a big story, and that's what we want to hear, right? It's not like you're, oversleeping, right?
Yes. It's not. Well, no, I'm definitely not oversleeping.
Elliotte, thanks for your time, man.
All right, guys. Have a great. I got to get to work. I got to write my blog.
Well, yeah, it looks like you're ready to rock and roll on something over there.
You know what? It's Monday is a busy work day, so I got to get going. But I'm happy to carve some time out for you guys.
Appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
See you later.
That's a wrap on another episode of After the Whistle. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, After the Whistle, and at Craig Rivet 52, at the Instigator 76. And you can find us, as you already know, on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and anywhere else where you can get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to spread the word.